So for this project, I need some kind of car part, or perhaps even a junkyard car to study off from, and learn the needed skills. For a start, I looked on Facebook Marketplace, hoping to find someone disposing their unwanted car parts, and preferably for cheap. After a few days of constantly eyeing Marketplace, I still hadn't found what I wanted. It was all either too expensive in Kelowna, or I had no ways of transporting it to work on it. So I asked my dad for any ideas, which honestly should have been step one before wasting my time on Marketplace. And so he knew someone at his workplace that owned a car junkyard. So my dad asked him about my proposal. It took a week, but he finally came up with an offer. A subframe with the engine, transmission, and axles still attached, all for $200. This was more than I was hoping to spend at first, but after a short look on the internet, I found I could earn some of it back by selling some of the parts. So the junkyard owner needed the space. It was taken up, and for $200 he dropped it off at my dad's workplace. That's also where most of the tools I needed were already waiting sitting there. So I got to work. Not without researching what I was working on first though. With a short search, I realized the car which the subframe came from didn't have a conventional engine. Instead I had a rotary engine. More on that later, but anyway, I wanted to find out exactly what I was working on to alleviate any headaches later on. A subframe, as the name suggests, is a smaller frame separated from the car's frame. It's meant to hold the engine, transmission, suspension, and other drivetrain parts. That's exactly what I was working with. Knowing that, I began assembling it into smaller, more manageable pieces to later study on. First came off the motor accessories like the oil coolers, alternator, and other pieces mounted to the engine. With the motor stripped, I could now read the part number, revealing the motor was rebuilt by Mazda in 2011. Then I took off the engine mounts, unbolted the transmission from the engine, separating it from its last burden. I continued by taking off the struts and other suspension components off the subframe. Within a couple of days I had everything separated and laid out. On the next weekend I took the engine inside to take it fully apart, and it was going terribly slow. First, me and my dad had trouble taking off the front eccentric shaft bolt, but reading forum posts of people taking apart the engine shows that this is a common problem, and simply heating the bolt with a blowtorch helped the sealant making it unstuck. Now I could fully take it apart, labeling everything so I could put it back together if I wanted. Then I gave it a quick bath so I wouldn't be covered in oil every time I grabbed any of it, as I'm pretty sure it had an oil leak when it used to run. The rotary engine, or known as the Wankel engine, named after its inventor, Felix Wankel, instead of pistons, it had a very specifically shaped triangle that also spins in a very specifically shaped housing, cycling between the stages of combustion as the triangle spins. I don't think I could have simplified that more. There's whole books and research papers available about the engineering behind the rotary engine. The design was thought to be the next breakthrough in internal combustion engines, but it was without its problems. Many companies in the 1950s had picked up the design in hopes of making it work, but they all suffered the same reliability problems. Most companies dropped the rotary dream after spending millions developing them. Only the Japanese company Mazda continued their work on a rotary engine, hoping to strike gold one day by further developing the rotary engine. They assembled 47 of their best engineers and went to work. They first put the rotary engine in a Mazda Cosmo, Mazda's first sports car, then the R100, RX2, RX3, RX4 rotary pickup, another Cosmo, an RX7, and finally the RX8. Almost 5 decades of development, only to end due to environmental standards. It was never the revolutionary engine everyone once thought, but it wasn't a complete flop either. Mazda had used the rotary engine's unique advantages to win Le Mans in 1999, one of the most respected race series, and sold millions of cars utilizing the rotary engine. Disassembling and learning about this obscure and mostly unknown engine and the parts around it has massively expanded my general knowledge of cars, and honestly that probably wasn't even the most important thing I learned from this experience. It was the problem solving, researching, troubleshooting, and hands-on skill that I acquired from this, them being very important aspects of a mechanic. It gave me a better preview into the trade before I start my automotive course next year.